Shalom, we are going to learn the first sugyot of Bava Metzia on the mission that we have done, Elu Metziot. Before we do that, we're going to do a little bit of introduction to what is Gemara exactly. We talked about this earlier in the year, but we're going to look at it again now. Now, the Mishnah, we know its teachings of the Tanaim. It's their giving over the Torah Shabbat Peh, that information that was given to Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai, but kept orally, kept Bal Peh, until it had to be written down. The teaching of the Tanaim that's not included in the Mishnah was called a Braita. Again, it's still part of Torah Shabbat Peh, part of the Torah Tanaim, but it wasn't included in that particular book. Sometimes the Mishnah and the Braita will have makom, and sometimes there'll be something that's not clear, and the needs of Braita. That's when the Gemara is going to come in. Sometimes questions about what it is, since it's machloka within the Mishnah, how do you decide what exactly they're talking about between the Braita and the Mishnah? Those are all where the Gemara is going to come in. After the generations of the Tanaim came their students, the Amoraim. The Amoraim are the ones that are quoted in the Gemara, in the Talmud. They're a later generation that predominantly speak in Aramaic. That's one of the clues, although they do also talk in Hebrew back and forth. Later on, it became just Aramaic. And then Amoraim ask questions on, and they analyze the Mishnah and Braita. Their discussions, their analysis became the Talmud, written by Ravina Rav Ashi later on. They compared the Mishnah to the Braitot. They used logical Gemara thinking that we've worked on to better explain the Mishnah and the questions there. Now, you take these down. So you have these key terms for what is the Mishnah and Gemara. Now, in the Gemara, it works with a kasha, usually pronounced. Kasha is a difficulty or a question in the Gemara. It's when two things don't seem to line up. There's a contradiction. They can't go together. Some problem. It could be a difficulty in understanding the Mishnah or a Braita. It could be the contradiction or machloket between two different sources, either Mishnah and a Mishnah, or Braita and a Braita, or Mishnah and a Braita, or a point that's not clear from the Mishnah or Braita, or a question about applying one of these points that's in the Mishnah and Braita. Some of your questions this year have been fantastic kushiyot about what about this case, what about that case, something that's not immediately clear from the information that we have in the Gemara. A kasha is going to be what we're working with at any given point in the Gemara. So take this down real quick. Now the answer to a kasha is a teretz. The Gemara is going to find some way to explain how both sources really are true, or that it's a specific machloket to a certain Tana that follows their way of thinking, their reasoning, and will solve the kasha. Realize there's no contradiction in their end. And it's very, very enjoyable to really work through a kasha and find a teretz. These guys down here are super happy. They just found a teretz to their kasha. That's why they're dancing like that. Now, in the process of doing that, you'll get to what's called the Hava Amina. The Hava Amina is what your kind of first assumption would have been. Very often, the Gemara will give a Hava Amina. It'll kind of guide you through that way of thinking. You look at the kasha, your first thought would have been this. The obvious thing to think would have been this. Your assumption would have been this. The Hava Amina is almost always wrong. It is almost always kind of a way to train your brain to analyze something, get stuck where it doesn't really work and catch why it's a problem, and then give you the real teretz, the real answer. But the Hava Amina is almost always wrong. The Gemara will actually give you this wrong answer to help you to come up with a proper analysis of it and go through that process. So again, we have these three, kasha, teretz, and the Hava Amina. With that, let's take a look at it. This is what the daf of Gemara looks like on the left. It has a lot on it. We're not going to focus on everything. There's a lot of different perushim. There's a lot of different sections. This is the Rashi. Same Rashi is on Chumash, and Navi is Rashi on the Talmud. This is the actual text of the Talmud. Any parak starts with the Mishnah over here. Bold, big first letters over there. And the Gemara starts over here. The mission that we're working with, that first mission of Elu Metzia Shelo ve'elu chayav lahachriz, Elu Metzia Shelo. Then it gives a list of all the things that are Shelo, and it's going to analyze them. And the first one on our list is Matzah Peret Mufusarin. Peret Mufusarin, the scattered fruit. There's no siman, there's no makom, there's no mida, there's nothing, just scattered fruit. They are hefker because the Baal has yayush. When the Baal has yayush to become hefker, you get to keep them. The question the Gemara is going to deal with is, what does that case actually mean? Right? What does the word peret mufusarin, scattered fruit, really mean? What could be the further question to clarify that? What are the possible ways that statement could be interpreted? We're going to see using these words. I'm going to go through the Gemara here in this video. You are going to go on your own as well. Make sure to take these down. They're going to be helpful to go through them in the process. Again, the Gemara is written in Aramaic. So even if you are very strong in Hebrew, it is a new language for you. It's very similar to Hebrew. It's written in Hebrew letters, but it is still different. Tuba means more than that. Kav is a unit of volume. A batzir is less than that. Amot is a unit of length, about 18 inches. Nami means also. Hechidami means what is the case. Mahachi is from this situation, and E is the same as the word im. The words are very similar like that, which means if. Take these down, and we get to our first question. First question is going on that Dibur Hamatzil, Mata Peret Mufuzarin. It's the line of the Gemara we're going to talk about. The question is Vakama. How much? How much is Mufuzarin? How much is scattered? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, kav ba'arba amot. He gives you a ratio. If you have one kav of stuff within arba amot squared, that's called mufusarin. That's the ratio of what's called scattered, because you need to define what is scattered and what's kind of a loose pile and what's all over the place. Like, what does the word scattered really mean? It says that kav ba'arba amot. If you have one kav of fruit within arba amot square, that's called mufuzarin. That's going to be hefker because the Baal has yayush, right? How scattered is considered scattered. One kav for arba amot. That's the ratio we're going to work with. The Gemara is not going to like this because even though it seems to be clarifying, oh, that's what scattered means, we're going to see it's actually a little less simple than that. It's actually more complicated than that. Now, before we do that, I want you to think, what are two different ways that one kav per arba amot could be found, right? How, within those parameters, within those numbers and measurements, how could that look? That's the Gemara's next question, is hechidami. What does that actually mean? What does one kav per arba amot mean? Here it is. The problem we're going to see is that could mean that for every big space, there's one pile of kav, or it could mean it's totally spread out. Both of those are going to have a problem. The problem is going to be like this. Hechidami. What does kav ba'arba amot really mean? Gemara says like this. I derech nafila ifilu tu banami. I derech hanoach ifilu batzeh ha'achi nami lo. Meaning, if that kav ba'arba amot is derech nafila, it's all over the place. I don't really care what the ratio is. It fell all over the place. The guy dropped it. There's no siman. He has yayush. It's heavy. He noticed it. Comes back. Don't expect it to be back anymore. Even if there's more than one kav ba'arba amot, even if you fill the whole arba amot with it, it's still going to be yayush. It's still going to be hefker. What do I care what the ratio is going to be? Kav ba'arba amot, shlosh kavim ba'arba amot. What do I care? Even more, filu tu banami, even more than that, should also be hefker. If it's derech hanacha, it looks like it was put there on purpose. If you look batim hachinami, even less than one kav ba'arba amos. If you put it there on purpose, well, then you gotta leave it there. Don't touch it. So what is the case? Hechidami. What does kav arba amot actually mean? I mean, there's a problem with both of these. It's a derech hinafila, scattered, what we call scattered. Even more than a kav should still be shalom. It should still be hefker because of yayush. And if it's derech hinoach, if it's derech hanacha, it's put there on purpose. Well, even less than a kav arba amot should be chayav lahachris because it would put there on purpose, or maybe even leigabo. I don't know. But both of those don't work. That's our kasha. Initially, what does peret mufuzari mean? Kama. We had the answer of kav arba amot, and then hechidami our kasha is what does kav arba amot actually mean? Neither of them are clear. Neither of them seem to work. The Gemara is going to give us a teretz to this. If it's found derech nafila, even more than a kav per arba amot should be shalom. If it's derech hanacha, even less than a kav should be arba amot, should be chayav hachris. How is this so? Hechidami. The havamina is this and this. When I say kav arba amot, I would have thought it's either derech nafila or derech hanacha. Well, both of those don't work. The havamina, they have to both be wrong. So what is the answer going to be? Can you think of a way to make the answer of Yitzchak make sense? How can a kav arba amot? Because we assume he's right, we just don't understand what he says. Can you think of a way that make his answer make sense? That's what the Gemara is going to try to do. How do we figure out what did he really mean? He's not just saying nonsense. What did he really mean? Let's take a look at the teretz of the Gemara. Before we do that, a few more words. The mechnashta deve dare is at the grain mill where people would take their grain or fruit and they would process them into flour, or similarly, you could have precipitated wine. Askina means the talk what we're discussing. The nafish tachayu means it's a lot of work. Tarach means to work hard. Hadar means to go back. The ati v'shakeluhu means go back and take it. Akure mafkar loho means make it hefker. And mehechi means from this. Let's take these notes down. Let's take a look what the Gemara says. Amarav ukva bar chema. That's the Amora we're going to talk about. V'machnashta devedari askinan. Kav arba amot nafish tarchayehu lo tarach inish below hadrati v'shakilahu akuri ma pakelahu. Batir mahachi tarach v'hadrati v'shakilahu below bakelahu. That's the whole answer. We'll go through line by line right here. Then we'll go through more carefully line by line. Amar of Ukma Bar Chema, he's going to answer this question. And it says that the whole Kav Arba Amot is talking about the Machnashta, the Be Dare Askinan. We're dealing with, remember, sometimes in Hebrew and Aramaic, the words in English don't come in order. So we're dealing with, really should come first in the translation, that we're dealing with Machnashta, the Be Dare. We're talking about the grain house. When you find a Kav Arba Amot in the grain house, that's going to be a situation of shalom. Lots of people go there. It's a public grain house, a public place to grind your grain. So kav ba'arba amot, the nafesh tarchayhu, it's a lot of work to pick up one kav ba'arba amot. It's not that much stuff. It's a lot of space. It's spread out. You're going to pick that piece up over here, and that piece up over there, and that piece up over there. Lo tarach inish. It's just not worth it. It's not enough stuff to justify how much work it's going to be to pick that all up. Lo tarich inish, they're not going to go and work that hard. But lo hadar v'atil l'shakil, they're not going to go back and take it. Rather, apkure v'pakel, they're not going to make it hefker. They're just going to say, forget it. It's not worth it. Whoever wants to go and bother themselves, they can do it. I'm not doing it. It's hefker. You show up. You find that kav arba amot. You say, yeah, it's a lot of work. Like, dude, free fruit, woo! Like, okay, if you want to, you can do it. But the owner, the Baal, they had Jayish. They don't care anymore. They seem to know it's there. They just don't care. Now, that's kav arba amot. But if you have less than a kav arba amot, tarach v'hader v'ati shakil, they will work because it's not that much work to pick up a little bit less than that. You just got to pick a few pieces here, there, and you're done. Then they will go back and they will take it below the pachalahu. They're not going to make it hefker. Therefore, there's no yayush. The situation of kav arba amot, it's not worth it for them. Batim less than a kav arba amot, and they will go back and take it again. We're talking about the grain house. It's an old grain house, right? Kav arba amot, the nafish tarchayhu v'lo tarachinish v'lo hadareti v'shakaluhu apkure mapachaluhu. To pick up a kav per arba amot is a lot of tircha, a lot of work, effort. No one will do that when the grain, they're just busy. They're doing other stuff. They have a lot of grain. They can deal with losing a little bit of kav. They won't go back. They will, they will make it hefker. They will have yayush. They will go back. Nafish tarchahu. This guy is working so hard for that much. It's just not worth it. Not worth it. It's only a little bit. They're going to go back and do the work. They will go back and take it. They're not going to make it hefker, right? They will do that work. That is our teretz. That's how kav ba'arba amot makes sense. Now we have a flow chart. The Gemara asks, "V'kama, how scattered do fruits need to be in order to be shalom?" Rav Yitzchak says, "Arba, one kav ba'arba amot." Gemara has a problem with that statement. If it's derech hanacha, even less should not be. If it's derech hanicha, even more should be. Nefila, rather, it should be more than that. So what's the answer? It's at the grain mill. One kav arba amot is too much effort to go back for. Less than one kav arba amot isn't too much to go back for. What questions could you still have on this Gemara? I want to end with a story. And that is just about the idea of kash in general. There was a Rav. We have the names of the people. They asked me later for them. There's a Rav that went to the Volozhin Yeshiva. That is the Volozhin Yeshiva. We talked about Chaim Volozhiner once before. Actually, later on, the Netziv, one of the later Rosh Yeshiva, was the one we talked about the shoemaker story. I can remind you if you need to remind you of that story. But someone came over to the yeshiva looking for a husband for his daughter. And he decided the way he's going to find the eligible person, I'm just going to check with her after, but find the eligible person would be, he's going to ask Akasha. He's going to go into the yeshiva, this is the best of the best, guys, learning. And he's going to ask Akasha, and whoever can answer that Kasha, they'll have the chance to marry his daughter. And it's time of arranged marriages. We asked her, she wanted someone who's real Talmid Chacham. And he gives the Kasha. Not a single person can answer it. It's too hard. It's too complicated. I don't know. After a day or two going through, he says, all right, well, no one can come up with the answer. No one can come up with the teretz. Okay, I'll go somewhere else. I'll look somewhere else. Packs up his bags, gets in his wagon, and he's going to start going somewhere else. As he's leaving, he sees this guy running behind him. And he stops the wagon and says, man, how can I help you? Do you come up with the teretz to Akasha? He says, forget the shidduch. I have no idea. But you can't come to the yeshiva with a kasha and leave without a teretz. You got to work through it. You got to come up with an answer. Do you have an answer? And the man says, I do have an answer. And the fact that you want it so bad, the fact that you really want to understand the Torah so badly, you are going to be my son-in-law. That man wound up becoming a great Talmid Chacham in and of himself. Generations of children, grandchildren, who also did. Really want to work through it. Kasha is not just something to say, oh, it doesn't make any sense. It's something that we need to work through to come up with the teretz, to come up with it and train our brain to think through challenges and problems in life and be able to understand them better. That is our first sugya. Review it together in class.